Rebecca Dove is the managing director of the Hubbub Foundation, an environmental charity that gave evidence to the committee. She joins us now. Good morning, Rebecca. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you. Morning.
How realistic is it to charge 25 pence? Is it just simply punishing the consumer for a crime they didn't commit?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, 2.5 billion coffee cups used in the UK every year. The vast majority of those are going to landfill, and a very small minority are being recycled. So, this is a massive environmental issue, and we really welcome the efforts being made by the Select Committee to find a solution and to raise the issue of raise the profile of the issue. In terms of the proposed 25p charge, I think we feel it's slightly harsh that the immediate burden of fixing the issue is falling onto the consumer. The 25p charge is a lot higher than the carrier bag charge. But ultimately, we support efforts to encourage people to use reusable cups, and we recognise that a charge could be an effective way of doing this. I think more testing is required, really, to assess the impact of the charge. Is 25p the right charge to encourage people to use reusables?
The the 5 pence charge on plastic bags seems to have reduced plastic bag usage by 85%. Now, it can't be just because people feel poorer. It must have had some psychological effect. Do you think that a 25 pence charge would cause people to change their spending habits in the same way?
Yeah, well, we're not sure at the moment. So we're actually launching a trial today with Starbucks, which is going to be looking specifically at this. And we're going to introduce a 5p charge, starting with 25 stores in London, to really see what impact this has in changing people's behaviours, with the hope that it moves and incentivises people to use the reusables more. And that trial will really provide some evidence and findings, and some on the ground learning that can help the government in responding to the Select Committee's recommendations.
I've got a 7-month-old child. Now, that decision to have a child makes far more impact on the environment than a coffee cup, a plastic bag, or just about anything else I can do. Is it proportionate to charge for these small things when we we can do pretty much as we please when it comes to, for example, population growth?
Yeah, I mean that's a big question. I think certainly coffee cups is one part of the puzzle, and our lifestyles are moving towards being more on the go. So, it's not just coffee cups. We also get through huge amounts of plastic bottles and food packaging. So definitely, I think the government needs a coherent strategy and to be looking at recycling on the go in a more kind of holistic way. I think there's the slight risk that if we just look at coffee cups in isolation, we'll end up with a bit of a piecemeal approach, and a bit of confusion around all the different issues. So we need to look at recycling on the go, and to really find a coherent strategy on that, which the industry and the public can really get behind.
If you were the Prime Minister, I'll make you Prime Minister for like 2 minutes, Rebecca. What do you do in order to save the environment? What would be your specific policies in that case? Coffee cups might be one thing, but the big picture here, what would you do?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think today, really, the issue that we're keen to focus on is recycling on the go. So I think I'd really be looking at coffee cups as part of a larger challenge, and kind of looking at our lifestyles around eating and drinking. And looking at how we can find better sound solutions to deal with all this packaging, plastic bottles and the coffee cups that we're creating that are having such a negative environmental impact. So I think I'd be looking to come up with a coherent strategy which is easy for the industry to back and to help scale, and then for public sector bodies to also implement on a local level, and really looking at how we could introduce responses in cities and towns across the UK.
One of the problems with, for example, electric vehicles is we have to get the power from somewhere, and we don't have a completely green national grid. Is it possible that we replace one evil with another based on the fact that we haven't got that green environment when it comes to energy?
Yeah, potentially. Sorry, in what sense do you mean?
Well, if you have an electric car, You might not be making emissions in central London, but you could be making them in the Midlands where the power's coming from.
Yeah, that's you need to look at the full kind of life cycle of your environmental imprint, and yeah, can't just look at things in isolation. So with this issue around the recycling of packaging, we're certainly encouraging to look at the full life cycle and the environmental impacts that these different products are having, and really, encouraging the burden for fixing the issue to be passed more heavily onto the companies that are creating the problem in the first place.
If there was one piece of advice you'd give to conscientious citizens who want to help the environment, what would Hubbub advise?
Well, given the focus today, I think we'd encourage you to use a reusable cup, and to introduce that into your lifestyle and into your behaviours, and to try using that and replacing disposable cups with reusables, whether that's a reusable coffee cup or a reusable plastic bottle.
You'll be glad to know I never drink coffee, so I'm not part of the problem on this one occasion. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks very much.
That's Rebecca Dove, Managing Director of the Hubbub Foundation.